Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Squash Canada's Coach PD webinar series. Today, we're pleased to have Ahad Raza back with us to do another presentation. Today's topic, optimizing mindset, outlook, and performance. This topic will cover a broad range of discussion and whatnot. So in this webinar, you'll learn a proven path for efficient and effective performance optimization. You will discuss deliberate practice and how to apply it to your students. We will also touch upon vision, goal setting, and motivation, and arguably the most important thing, the notion that joy enhances performance. So please bring your reflections, ideas, and an open mind. Ahad is looking forward to sharing his experiences and learning from yours too. So with that being said, you can actually, Ahad has just asked me to encourage you all to turn on your webcams so that there's some engagement. And if you have questions throughout the presentation, please either type them in the chat or stop the presentation because we are still a small group today. And you can ask your questions as we go through. Just raise your hand and I'll either facilitate the question to Ahad or Ahad will do it himself. So we look forward to today's presentation. Again, if you have questions, let us know. Otherwise, take it away, Ahad.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, everyone, for joining. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I see several faces, so thanks for getting the webcam on. It allows me to see whether you're confused, whether you're engaged, whether it's all making sense, and all of that good stuff. So I appreciate it. So today, folks, I have three major goals from this presentation for this to be a success. And one of them is to try and impart upon you the essential reason for reflection, the power of reflection. We're going to get into that in a minute. And the second thing is to suggest the importance of being aware of our thoughts and the power of the mind. And I'm going to share a couple of tools with you around how we can leverage one aspect of that. And then the third thing is around deliberate practice and intentionality. So we're going to talk more about how to leverage that when it comes to training and effectiveness as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is put on a little video for you. And I need to ensure that there's some audio in this. So can you please tell me in a moment whether you can hear any audio? Anything or no? No audio. Let's try this again. Bear with me for 1 minute. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to share it again. I think I have to click something. There we go. Share sound. Now, please let me know if you can hear that. Thank you.
What role has reflection played in shaping your personal growth?
The ability to look at oneself critically, to say to oneself, you were good in that situation, you weren't good in that situation, you could have been better in that situation. Not to be overly critical, meaning you're always at fault if something goes badly, or not to be so filled with hubris that you think everything you did was fine and it's always the other person, but be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it. You know, when they do sales training, there's, it's always three people. One who pretends to be the salesman, one who pretends to be the customer, and one who observes. And then they all take turns, and the one who does the learning is the observer. So the question is, can you be your own observer? Like, can you replay a situation? And so self-reflection has been huge for me, and I've been huge into it for many, many, many years. The ability to say, okay, I can take some responsibility for the outcome of that, good or bad, and I can learn to do that again, or I can learn to spot those situations and avoid them in the future.
So folks, I'd love to hear what stood out to you from that little clip from Simon Sinek's interview. You can, if you're on video, you can put your hand up and share. If you are not on video and can't, you can chat, put it in the chat. Sebastian, go ahead.
What struck me is that it's the observer that's learning. It's not what I would have imagined. I would have thought that the sales guy would be learning because he's doing his pitch. Mm-hmm. But That's what struck me.
And what's interesting is it's the idea of observing. So it's the sales guy in that very moment. Unless his awareness is extremely high, he won't be learning. It's after the fact, when he looks upon the experience and he observes or he receives the feedback, that's when the real learning takes place. And the other couple of things that stood out to me were this piece about judgment and not being overly judgmental or harsh to yourself. If you make a little mistake, we're not getting into this negative self-talk and things like that. It's some detachment from the outcome, but it's all about just positive reflection to learn what could be done differently, or what went really, really well and what could be repeated next time moving forward. Does anyone else have any thoughts based on the minute there from Simon Sinek? Okay, so the reason I wanted to start with that was because I want to impress upon you the essential need for all of us to reflect. And it's about squash as an athlete, as a coach, and in every other facet of our lives. And I'll give you an example. But first, I'll share a quote. Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. I let you reflect upon that. My examples about reflection, I remember the first time I got on court with Gregory Gaultier once in a training session, in a practice session. And we started off with basic things. We started off with a Bose drive, did some rotating drives, and eventually we started playing a length game. Everything felt pretty normal and comfortable at this point. He was obviously not going at 100%. And then all of a sudden we added a condition where we were doing length, and then he said, let's hit some kills. We all know Gregory Gaultier's strength was his kill shot. And we're playing a rally, and I hit what I thought was actually a pretty solid length onto his backhand. He was stretched out in open stance in the back left corner, balls behind him, and he ripped this cross-court kill from a position that in my mind was a defensive position. And he attacked the ball with more accuracy than I was accustomed to people attacking if they were set in position. So all of a sudden, my mental blueprint of what I thought was possible, or what I was aware of, suddenly was shattered. And there was no chance that I could have responded to that shot because I had never seen it before. I couldn't fathom the possibility of it coming from that position. This, in hindsight, and what I'm going to share with you here is a little model that I've created about the power of reflection. And it starts with reflecting, because reflecting leads to greater awareness. I could have been in that situation with Gregory Gaultier and just been like, oh my God, that was just a fantastic shot. And then that would have been the end of it. Instead, if I reflected, it's like, well, how did he do that? What was his position like? I didn't even realize that was possible. All of a sudden, by reflecting upon it, my awareness increases and my perspective broadens, because now there's this possibility. I can fathom the idea that hitting a kill from that position is actually a possible option. Maybe not yet based on my skill level or my abilities, etc., but it is a possibility. And if that's the case, now I have this ability to make a choice, and I have a choice to start training to make that a reality for myself. And through consistent action, it could be consistent action towards my movement and my spacing, or my plyometric ability to get in position, or my sequencing and timing so that I can hit the ball when it's behind me with that much pace and pressure. Whatever it is, now I have a different choice, which through consistent action will lead to different results. And the result would be that maybe one day I can hit a kill similar to that from that position. So this cycle is sort of the foundation for mindset. It's a foundational way of thinking about things. And we all have the possibility, the choice to make this a habit for ourselves, if it isn't already a habit. And I'll share another story. The one time I trained with Max Lee, he was in Toronto for the Canada Cup, or maybe it was the Cambridge Cup at that time. And we ended up doing some drills. We started off with just doing rotating drives. I had never experienced that much pressure with such consistent hitting, where the ball was always fading, falling down into the back corner. It was always low on the front wall, coming with pace. I had never felt that fatigued doing rotating drives for just 5 minutes, for example. And suddenly, again, that opened up. I reflected, I'm like, wow, I didn't know it was possible. My awareness just went up. I didn't know it was possible that you could hit rotating drives that consistently, that accurately, with that much pace. And it gave me this awareness and this perspective of what the game is like at that top 20, top 15 level. And then again, I had a choice. Do I want to train like that or not? That was my choice. And if it was, what can I do to start hitting length consistently like that? What can I do to withstand the pace and pressure of length like that? How can I adjust my key position? How do I slow the pace down so I can withstand it now? How can, these are the sorts of reflective questions that we need to, or I encourage us to start asking if we're not already doing so. And this applies if you're an athlete or if you're a coach. So building upon this idea of reflection, I want to ask you, and I would encourage some engagement now, please. Can you think of a recent experience, either on the court or off the court, where you did reflect or follow somewhat of a similar process to what we're just talking about now, that led to a new choice popping up in your life? And maybe you didn't do it in the moment. If you didn't, can you think of an experience now where you can, in this moment, reflect upon something that happened to raise your awareness and potentially have a new choice? Take a minute or two to please think about it, and then we'll discuss it. Another 30 seconds or so. Okay, do we have any volunteers with any reflections to share?
We have a question in the chat there, Odd, from Phil.
Yes, please.
It says, mental blueprint is never static. Yes. Changes in individuals' limits. So how long does it take to change my blueprint? What's involved?
This is a great question. You're absolutely right. A mental blueprint is never static. And what we're talking about right now, this process of reflection and raising your awareness and broadening your perspective, the whole point of this is to expand our mental blueprint. And the examples I shared about Gaultier or Max Lee, those suddenly expanded my mental blueprint. The thing is that everything out there, it already exists. It's about us shining a light on whatever it is and making it a reality for ourselves. So, when you say how long does it take to change the blueprint, this depends on how diligent you are, how consistently you take action towards whatever the task at hand is. Research says that on average, it takes, they say 66 days, but that's again, like a very generic average. It could be less if you're very, very efficient with your learning. It could be significantly longer if you aren't. But the key is consistent action, because essentially what we're doing is we have to put in a new neural pattern, a new neural pathway in our brains. And if you have an existing pathway, first you have to stop using that. So you have to break the existing habit, and then you have to put the new pattern in, and then you have to repeat that new pattern enough times, which, like I said, could be 2, 3, up to 6 months, maybe even longer, of consistent action. So that's how long it could take. And when you think about what's involved, it's having a clear mental representation of what it is you're trying to do, and then taking consistent, strategic, or effective action to basically automate that new pattern that you're trying to teach yourself. So if we make this very concrete, if I think about the kill that Gregory Gaultier hit, and let's say I want to start training that, well, the steps I need to take are, I'm not going to start by trying to hit that kill with that accuracy, with that pace and pressure when I'm in a defensive position. I need to first learn how to hit that kill when I'm set in the correct position. So I have to have the correct technique. Am I hitting open face? Am I hitting flat? Am I hitting closed? What works? What doesn't work? I need to get comfortable hitting that ball when it's in front of me or kind of on time when I'm not under pressure. And then eventually I need to learn how to sync my whole body's movement and snap my racket when the ball gets behind me. So you have to start from lower complexity, lower pressure, and then you have to build that up gradually over time when it comes to change. And that applies both on the court and off the court in your life. You know, if you're trying to build a new habit, you don't want to start off with level 100 of the habit and go from 0 to 100. You have to start with a slightly more basic version. Just start doing the minimum requirement for it so that you just start becoming comfortable with it. And then you layer upon it over time. Okay, great. Thank you. I see the response in the chat. Yeah, we do require a complete vision of the final level. Now, and we're going to get into vision in a minute, so I love it. We're on the same wavelength, Phil. So this idea of having a vision, this is something that I've struggled with a little bit in my own life. So in the past, before I went fully into squash and all the things I'm doing now, when I used to work my corporate job, I had a vision, but I had a vision that I didn't believe in fully, or that I didn't want to materialize with my heart. I had a vision that I was following because I was being told that it's the normal thing to do. Oh, you're working as a manager. Well, the eventual goal is to try to become a VP, for example. But I didn't believe in that and I didn't want it. On the flip side, now in my life, as I'm in this world and in this area where I'm passionate, I'm enthusiastic, I'm keen, I'm committed, I have very specific visions about what I want to do, and I get energized by those visions. And all of a sudden, those visions start to manifest themselves into reality as well. Whereas in the past, the visions did not manifest themselves into reality, even though I kept trying to encourage myself to do things. So this piece of vision is really, really important, and we're going to get to it in a minute. So before we go there, any reflections that anyone would like to share? And again, no judgment, no anything. This is an open group for all of us to learn and grow. The more you share, the more you're going to develop. I'll tell you guys a little story. When I was doing my master's degree at U of T, I was TAing for this entrepreneurship course. And there was this gentleman who was this very successful entrepreneur that taught the course. And he would come in and he wouldn't ask people if there were volunteers. He would just call upon people. And it made everyone super uncomfortable. But his whole thing was, when we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, that's when we're truly going to grow. So I feel like I might, out of a place of love, have to take a page out of his book and start calling on people when it comes to reflection. All right, let's do it. Sebastian, since you're always one to jump in, I'm going to lean on you first. Any reflection that you have to share with us, any recent experience that either you did reflect upon in the moment or that you can reflect upon now in hindsight?
Well, yeah, I have a cool story. I think there's this guy in our club, we call him Speedy Gonzalez because he's like super short, super quick, gets to every ball. Like, he's a really slippery guy. And I watched him take out our number 2 player in the club, 3 games to love, during a league match a couple of weeks back. And as I watched him do that, I was like, how the heck can he get, like, how the other guy, the great standard squash player, just couldn't deal with it. He just completely got destroyed. And the week after that, I was up against Speedy Gonzalez for league. And the first game he destroyed me, but then the second game I started thinking, I'm doing exactly the same thing that Greg was doing against him. I'm just trying to play his game. I'm feeding him the balls that he wants. So I just started to slow everything down, and I just started lifting balls over his head. He's super short. And it was really crazy to notice how much that was messing him up. And the fact that the ball wasn't played with pace to him, he was getting on it too early. He was jamming himself on the ball. He was bouncing off the walls, and he was just getting frustrating from that pace. So it's like and I ended up losing in 5 because he eventually caught up with my little trick and started to volley everything and jump in midair and kill that ball halfway in the court. But I know he's just another level of player. But after the fact, in hindsight, I was like, wow, sometimes you try to fight fire with fire, you get sucked into someone's game. And the easiest, smartest thing to do is to do the opposite of someone's game and try and get them out of their comfort zone, because you're definitely not comfortable in that situation. So yeah, that was my like aha moment.
I love it. So see, it started with you reflecting on the previous match and then becoming aware that you were doing the same thing that that Greg did against Speedy Gonzalez. And all of a sudden you had a choice. Do I continue doing what I'm doing, which is clearly not working, or do I try something else, which could be slowing the game down? And then by consistently trying to slow the game down, you ended up winning a couple of games. And then he obviously adapted a little bit as well. And maybe, there's the odd 10 or out or whatever along the way, but you got different results from being blown away in the first game. You then won a couple of games and took it to 5. So this is a fantastic example of leveraging this cycle, this growth path that we're talking about. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thanks.
Let's call upon Jeff. You're looking very, very quiet there. Do you have any reflection for us, sir? You're on mute right now, so if you do, you can unmute yourself first, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I was contemplating, trying to come up with certain scenarios. And quite often it would be in terms of, say, coaching and stuff like that, finding, say, if I'm working with an athlete and we're working on a skill and it's just not clicking, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that they're not, and then I'm trying to show and stuff like that. And I've actually one time grabbed another athlete that I work with that has that skill and brought him on court and just had the other athlete kind of work with that individual just to try and see if they could help that individual that was struggling find that footwork that was really not clicking for them. And all of a sudden I come back 5 minutes later and they're both just flowing through it and so forth, right? So that was something. And so then I talked with my athlete after the fact and just kind of said, well, how did this person teach you what was happening? And they explained, and it's like, okay, so that's kind of more the route I want to go in how I approach things with this particular athlete, right?
I love it. And that's really cool that a lot of people, like, their ego gets in the way, where it's like, hey, I'm the coach, I know what I'm doing, I know the best way, and you got to listen to me, kind of thing, right? So I commend you for actually being comfortable and okay with someone else potentially coming in and helping along the process. So congratulations for doing that. That's huge. What did you end up learning? I'm curious. What did that athlete end up saying, and kind of how have you leveraged that moving forward?
Well, it was I can't remember exactly how it was, but I was explaining like the split step and then going into the side shuffle. Mm-hmm. And the person was just like, they didn't think they were coming in for a dancing class that day. It just didn't, and it just didn't flow for them. And so this other person, I can't remember how he put it, but just in the sense he just said, how to plant, and then in the side shuffle clicking your feet, and it just kind of made that connection for this athlete, and they just seemed to start be able to flow and get a longer stride in that side shuffle and so forth, so he could travel some decent distance and so forth. So it was very interesting.
I love it. No, it's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Okay, does anyone else want to volunteer before we move on? All right, fantastic. So I want to do a little movement activity, and it's we'll see how it goes. So all I want everyone to do for a moment is just stand up, and when I say start, you're just gonna walk for like 10 seconds. That's it. Those are my instructions. Start. Okay, and come back, remain standing for a moment, please. And now take 5 seconds and just look around the room you're in and identify something that either catches your eye, something that you love, something that is intriguing, and go towards it, please. Okay, perfect. And back to your chairs, please. So what I would like to know is, how did you feel in the first scenario where I asked you to just go? Where did you end up? How did you feel?
Confused.
Confused. Okay.
My wire wasn't long enough.
Obstacles popping up. Okay. Anyone else?
I just walked in one spot.
Yeah. Okay. And is it Rasula? What's the first name? Sorry.
It's Nick.
Nick. Perfect. That's what I thought. I wanted to double check. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, unfamiliar. And Sebastian, Nick, Jeff, anyone else? How did you guys feel in the Phil? I like that, Phil. Phil's in a meeting at home and he felt relieved. He needed the walk. How did you all feel in the second scenario where you took a moment, identified something, and then went towards that object, image, whatever it was? Nick, how did you feel?
Comfortable.
Okay, you felt comfortable. Sebastian?
I felt like I had more of a purpose.
Okay.
In my walking.
I love it. And Jeff, did you feel anything different from that or about the same?
Yeah, it's standing in one spot or walking one spot versus actually going to go do something. Like Sebastian said, you have purpose, you have motivation. You're right.
Yes, beautiful. And this is great. I'm really happy to hear you guys experience that, because what I'm going to share now is this cycle that I created, which I call the success cycle. And it starts with vision and clarity. And I know at the beginning, Phil, I believe, made the comment about vision as well. Once we have some form of vision and clarity, we can look at our values and our mindset, which help us move in the direction of our vision. We have to have appropriate routines and habits to help us get there efficiently. You might need some performance tools and support. So support could be a coach, or if you are the coach, maybe you need support from physical or athletic trainer to work with your athlete as well. Could be recovery sorts of tools. And then there's this idea of purpose or belief. And the little activity we just completed, there were two scenarios. Scenario one, no sense of direction. It's uncomfortable. There's no vision. You don't know where you're going. It's, you know, we feel lost. Scenario two, now you took a moment to figure out your vision or your destination or your goal, and all of a sudden we feel more comfortable. The path there is more efficient. If there was anything in the way, you might, well, Sebastian, you didn't, your headphone cord wasn't long enough the first time. So the second time you're like, well, I need to get here. So you took your headphones off. So there was an obstacle and you're like, well, I just experienced that, you know, this obstacle, I didn't know what to do the first time. Now there's an obstacle and you know how to work around it because you have a vision and you have a destination that you're trying to get towards.
I reflected.
There you go. See, we're putting everything into practice. So the idea here is, I hope that that experience stays with you about the power of vision. And like I said, truthfully, when I was working in the corporate sector, I didn't have a vision that I believed in. So having that belief, having some form of purpose, having a why that's actually driving you towards that vision is really, really important because it provides some motivation. It provides energy in that direction. So I'm not going to go over these details. You guys can get these slides later, but there are a bunch of things we have to do. We have to be curious. We have to be brave. We feel uncomfortable sometimes. We have to still move in that direction. We need to immerse ourselves in what we're doing. We need to have attention and focus. You know, the judgment piece that we talked about earlier. How many of you were maybe judging yourselves or judging this activity or this exercise like, man, what the heck is he making us do? Like, this is stupid. Like, what am I getting out of this? Or, you know, what am I doing? Like, these sorts of judgments are taking us out of the present moment, and they're taking us out of focus, and they're moving us into another realm, past or future, that is not going to help us get or achieve our goals. So really, really important. What I want to do is to actually guide you folks towards creating a vision for yourselves. And this might not be your final vision in a moment, but hopefully this helps you move in that direction. So what I would like all of us to do is to make a note of one important goal, something that you want to achieve, something that can be a vision for you. And maybe you already have an idea of some of this. So I would encourage you to write some of that in here to begin with. It could be as a coach, it could be as an athlete, it could be in your career if you want, it could be as a business owner or business person if that's your case, it could be for enjoyment and pleasure, whatever you want. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to make note of that.
Sorry, I'm having trouble. How do I write in this?
So, sorry, you won't be able to write into this specific table. So if you have like a Word document, you can just put like goals or ambition, or on a piece of paper, whatever you have access to.
Sorry, can I put it in the chat just quickly? Is that okay?
Yeah, if you'd like to, for sure.
Okay.
And I would maybe, after the chat as well, Jeff, if you want, you can put it into this template or somewhere else so that you have it as a reference point for yourself, if you find value in it. Okay, so the next step after making, and actually, does anyone need more time for the initial step? You can put your hand up if you need more time. Okay, so the next step is to use some emotions or powerful language to write out the feeling you will experience if you achieve your goal. How will it make you feel if you achieve your goal, or when you achieve your goal? I'll give you another minute or two for this. think everyone's ready for the next step. And the third thing is to create a vivid and powerful, motivating script that's going to give you inspiration and energy. So if you were to read this, you want to feel good, you want to feel motivated, you want to feel enthusiastic when it comes to the achievement of your goal. And the question you can ask yourself is, what will my life look like once I achieve this goal? And I'll give you guys a quick example, and then I'd like, if you're comfortable, share some of this. So I put an example here. If you're a player, maybe the goal is to become the #1 player in Canada under 19 by 2024. If you're a coach, maybe it's to develop 3 top 10 nationally ranked juniors by 2025 in these specific divisions. And what I did then is I just showed you an example of the feeling. So if you achieved either one of those, we'll use the coach example, I would feel joyful and competent and accomplished. I would feel confident in my ability to develop athletes and also guide other coaches towards improving their craft. And this last piece, if you're the coach, you would feel capable, confident, and you'd have infinite potential. I can achieve anything I can put my mind to. I act creatively and confidently. I learn voraciously. I practice diligently. I grow as a human being, an athlete, and a mentor. I inspire, motivate, guide, and create results. The world is my oyster. I am limitless. So something like that. If you read that to yourself every day, how would you feel? I would imagine motivated, hopefully inspired, hopefully energized. My hope is that you can create something similar for yourself. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, it looks like we're all in a good spot. Does anyone need another minute or two? You can put your hands up if so. Okay, and I see Jeff, thanks for sharing yours. Phil, thanks for sharing yours as well. So I see Jeff says, my word for this year is purpose. To do this, I have to practice having a broad vision to make sure my actions have the purpose that I'm looking for. To have a script for this would be to keep my head up and act with purpose. Awesome. So I think, Jeff, what you've shared there, like the script to keep my head up, I would say that's more of a, like, I would consider that an affirmation or like a mantra, something that's almost, like in the middle of games. I don't know if you guys talk to your athletes to say, hey, if you want to be in this positive space, if you want to focus on a particular tactical game plan, use these 2-3 words, push up and hunt, or whatever it might be. I would encourage you, if you're keen, I would encourage you to write out something that's a little bit like emotionally charged in a positive, inspirational way, because a lot of the neuroscience research that's out there now says that the more you can create an emotionally charged visual experience for yourself, what you're essentially doing is you're implanting that belief into your subconscious brain. And then when that belief goes into your subconscious brain, we end up acting in a way that is aligned with that belief. So, if your goal is to, have purpose in everything that you're doing, you want to try to charge yourself a little bit more. And I would encourage you to become maybe a little bit more specific about what the purpose is. So is the purpose as a coach, is the purpose as a partner, is the purpose as a business owner, like whatever it is, I don't know what the purpose is. So you might want to get more specific and then create a vision that you can kind of be energized from. Awesome. Phil, your goals are to play the piano with your left and right hand, and then to fly solo. I like it. I know you're on a meeting, so you're going to be limited. No, that's perfect. Doesn't need to be squash. Elated. I like the feeling, being elated. And I would even write out, so I'll use Phil's example because it's very tangible, where he says fly solo. If you're flying solo, I would create a script saying something along the lines of, I get to soar through the sky. I get to feel what it's like to be free, like an eagle soaring up high. And I can, get perspective about the world. I can do all sorts of things, like I feel excited thinking about that right now. And I don't know how to fly at all. So, if you can create something like that for yourself and you relive it on a daily basis, you're going to start taking action to get you closer to that. So some of the things that might be holding you back could be maybe it's like, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time to go take my, practice flying solo or take more lessons. Or it might say, it's the end of the day. I'm too tired. I don't want to go. I just want to chill out on the weekend, whatever it might be. Age. So we have all these reasons behind why we don't do something. So I would encourage us to create that script so that we have enough energy to move past those reasons that are holding us back. I see Charlie. Thank you for sharing. I just achieved my goal, certified intermediate instructor, train club coach. Congratulations. Now I am refocusing on improving my rating. And I think one of the keys to squash being successful is that it is easily measured, i.e. ratings, because you cannot manage something if you cannot measure it. I will compete and watch ratings to get my feedback, try new things, stay focused, etc. Okay, I like it. So your goal, so what I would encourage you to do, Charlie, is make your goal about ratings even more specific. So you're absolutely right. There's that old acronym SMART, having SMART goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So I would encourage you to think about what is the specific rating you want to get to? You've obviously got the measurable part, which is fantastic. If I don't know what your rating is, if you're a 4.5 level player and you're saying you want to become a 6.0 player and you say, I want to become a 6.0 player by the end of 2022, that's probably not a realistic goal to improve that significantly. Perfect. 4.75 to 5.5, Charlie. Thank you. So now the question is, what's the time frame that you're looking at to get to that level? And we want to make sure it's realistic. We want it to be challenging, but not so challenging that we can't believe it. I remember this is, I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone. I think when I was like in my early 20s, I started really getting into a lot of these motivational speakers and things like that. And they're like, oh, if you can see it, if you can write it down, you write down your goals and it's going to happen. So I was like, oh, wow, this is like magic. And I was like, I want to earn $1 million a year. And then, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years go by and it's like, you're not earning $1 million a year. And I'm like, what the heck? This is BS. Like this stuff doesn't work. And then, then you realize, well, you have to have some degree of belief that you can go do it. It has to be somewhat realistic with a stretch, but realistic. If it's not, we don't believe it, and then we don't take the action to move in that direction. It's kind of like there's a difference between making a prayer and then sending that prayer out versus actually setting the goal and then taking tangible action to get there. Perfect. So Charlie, I'll let you reflect more on the timelines behind that and whether it's realistic based on how frequently you're training. Do you have the appropriate guidance to help you get there? If you need the guidance, are you reflecting? Are you analyzing your videos? Are you learning from pro matches? Are you doing all that kind of stuff? Those are all the things that you might want to consider when you're thinking about your timeline. Anyone else want to share? Nick or Sebastian? Nick, go for it, sir.
Okay. Well, I mean, mine was a non-squash goal, and that's to learn a second language.
Okay.
And I started a while back, but then got sidetracked, and knowing I would have to get back on the beam and thinking about that just this morning, ironically enough. Yeah, coming up with a schedule to dedicate the time to do this, and how that would make me feel is complete. I'm not comfortable being in a situation as an adult and being retired, speaking only one language. So, you know, I've just have to motivate myself to set aside the time to get involved and do this every day.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So it sounds like you have the desire, because you talked about being complete. So that's powerful. To if this is something that makes you feel incomplete right now, I think being complete is a really powerful driver. I would encourage you to kind of keep that word in mind for yourself, or that feeling. In terms of, you know, creating the habit, there's a lot of habit research out there, and one of the things that they always say is tag on whatever new habit you're trying to create with something that you're already doing. So for example, if you say, I want to start practicing my second language, and you're like, I'm going to do it at this time. Well, at that time, you might already have something else set up in your schedule. So what you could say is, okay, if you wake up, if you're a fairly regimented person, I'm assuming you wake up at 8 a.m. every morning, let's say, you know, you go through your routine, you end up having your breakfast. What you might want to do is immediately as your breakfast is ending, say, this is going to be my language learning time, because now you've linked it, you've associated it with something that you're already doing, and you can leave some cues for yourself. So let's say you eat your breakfast at the dining table or the kitchen counter, wherever it is, on your couch, wherever, doesn't matter. You take your learning material and you place it there the night before. So as you're finishing your breakfast, the first thing and the only thing you're looking at is the learning material. So these are little tools or hacks that you can use to try to create the new habit. That why part, the completeness factor, is going to be the thing that really gives you that extra motivation. Now, you know, having all these things doesn't guarantee that you're going to sit down and actually spend time learning the language, but it will help. The other part, obviously, is your will and your desire, which will come from the script that we're talking about. So I would encourage you to create a story for yourself where, I don't, what's the language that you're learning, Nick?
It's Serbian.
Serbian. Okay, cool. So let's say you're learning Serbian, and your script might be something like, you know, I travel to Serbia and I can engage in fluent dialogue with the locals, and you know, I make friends, we become close friends, and they invite me to their home out in the countryside, and I get to experience all this wonderful beauty and the bounty of nature and good company and etc. I learn about the history of Serbia because I can communicate fluently. You know, all of the things that might excite you. Create a script for yourself that will help you stay motivated to actually do your work. One other thing that can work when it comes to habit creation, and all the things I'm sharing, folks, are apply to any habit that you want to create, right? So just apply some of these concepts to your own habit. The other thing that sometimes helps people is like an accountability calendar. So what you could do is create, it could be a checklist on a piece of paper, it doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be fancy. And all you do is you write down, create a few boxes for different days. And every day you do your homework or your practice, you check the box. And then it gives you this wonderful visual to look at that gives you confidence, knowing that, hey, I am consistently doing the work that I need to and want to do. And if you ever miss a day, that's totally fine as well. You just go back and you resume your schedule. And that's where that non-judgment piece comes in. We're not trying to kick our own butts over here. We want to be kind to ourselves. Sebastian.
I put two goals, one as a coach and one as an athlete.
Okay.
The one as a coach is to grow squash in New Brunswick. That's one of my goals. The feeling would be accomplished and valuable. And my script is, I am an able teacher. I love sharing my passion. I've taught music for a long time, for like 15 years, and now I'm turning it over to squash. So I'm trying to use that drive that I have for teaching music and apply it in my experience and apply it to squash. And then my athlete goal is to represent New Brunswick at the Canadian Masters Championship, which is next year, I believe. I just turned 40, so yay. And
happy belated birthday.
I would feel proud and excited and my script is let self one be silent so that self two can play freely. And that's from the Inner Game of Tennis, which is my mantra.
Okay, I love it. So there's your mantra. I would say create a deeper visualization script where you are actually representing at the Canadian Masters Team Championship, and kind of feel that, and feel the joy and the emotions and the sense of gratitude and accomplishment and all of that stuff.
Thanks.
Okay, awesome, folks. Thanks for sharing so much. You know, I'll share a funny thing with you all right now, because it just hit me. You know, we're talking about reflection and awareness, and one of the things that I was told, which I completely agree with, is that I have a tendency to say guys a lot, and I say, hey guys, or what's up guys, or whatever it is. And in the modern day and age, I've been told that saying guys is inappropriate. So I hear myself saying guys, and I'm consciously trying to make that change. So I just caught myself right now, which is why it popped out, because we're talking about awareness and making choices and taking consistent action. So see, I'm rewiring that, like, this is a very minute example, but I'm rewiring that pattern that's in my brain on an ongoing basis because of awareness. So, you know, we're all in it, working on something. So let's go to the final big topic that we're going to talk about. And this is this idea of deliberate practice. I don't know how many of you have read about deliberate practice. It's by a researcher named Anders Ericsson. He's the one who kind of created it by studying a whole bunch of really high performers and athletes and musicians and all sorts of stuff. It was Malcolm Gladwell that popularized the idea of deliberate practice through the 10,000 hour rule that he talked about. So I'm going to tell you what deliberate practice is in a minute. But before that, question for you all. What does your pre-coaching, if you're looking from the coach's perspective, or as an athlete, your training session look like? How thoughtful are you about it? And Nick, this could apply to learning Serbian as well. It could apply to anything. How thoughtful are you? How deliberate are you? And I'll jump here. How intentional are you about your learning plan? Anyone can share, or I shall call upon you. Okay, Sebastian, let's start with you, sir. How deliberate and intentional are you when it comes to your coaching plans and your training sessions?
When it comes to coaching, I'm very deliberate. I have a note on every athlete that I work with, what I want to work with on the given day. And then after I have their summary, I usually make the plan for the next week with them. My own training is a little... It's I guess it's deliberate, but whenever I get a solo practice, I tend to be all over the map because I'm just so happy I have time to solo. But I think I should definitely try to work on that a little more.
Well, you know, the deliberate aspect of your solo practice could be to just go have fun, right?
Yeah,
because then you're achieving the goal of just going and having fun.
I guess, yeah. Don't be so hard on myself.
Yeah. You see, because you're kind of like, based on your answer now, you're judging yourself a little bit to say, oh man, I'm wasting time. I'm not maximizing my time in solo. Well, hey, the goal could be to have fun. And in fact, you are achieving your goal then.
Could very well be.
Okay. Thank you. Nick, I know you're getting back into learning Serbian. When you a bit more consistently, were you consistent? Did you have a plan? Did you say, okay, today I'm going to sit down and learn about this, or I'm going to read this chapter, or something, anything like that?
When I started, before I got involved with dedicating all my time to the Canadian Open that just happened in Calgary,
right?
It was between 9:30 and 10 every day, or 9:30 and 10 and 10:15, going through one chapter of my old cassette learning and reading.
Okay.
And it was starting to get very habitual, and deviated from that and got out of it, and just thinking now it may be an appropriate time for me to get back.
Okay. I love it. That's perfect. So you had a pretty good structure before. It seems like you could just do it again because it's something that worked. Okay, Phil, I see that you're on now, sir. Meeting has concluded.
Yes, it's one meeting's over. The next one's at 1:30. Hi guys, sorry about that.
No, not a problem.
Yeah. So did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, if you've are you coaching a lot these days?
I do. I coach squash and I coach cricket as well.
Okay, I love it.
So yes, I can sort of say I do exactly what was it Sebastian? Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much kind of that. When I do my own training, it's really bad.
Yeah.
I do prepare for my students. Yeah, I write it out on a small sheet of paper,
Perfect.
have it in my pocket, and I do sort of small. I've learned a lot over the times. I keep it simple and small.
Perfect.
And then do a lot of debriefing after, and then I go over what I should do next. Yes, I'm kind of organized.
Okay.
Yeah, but in terms of my own goals, I think you wanted an answer for that. I am kind of diligent. I've started taking piano lessons, and I practice every day. And I like your idea about tagging. Yes, I completely approve of that. Have the books out ready, pencil, eraser, piano open. And for flying, yes, I'm just setting up my sim at home with the computer.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for good weather to go out and fly again with an instructor. Yeah, I agree with all of this.
Okay,
Thanks.
fantastic.
Is there a music teacher amongst us too?
Yes, Sebastian is.
Wow, piano, is it, Sebastian?
No, I'm actually a trumpet player, but I'm a wind instrument specialist. So I play pretty much everything that uses air.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm trying to learn piano and fly. These are my childhood dreams. Never got to it, so.
It's never too late.
Never too late, eh? Thanks for that.
That's it. That's it.
That.
Okay, I love it. No, guys, this is see there. I said guys.
Folks, you gotta say folks.
I have to say folks. Okay, so I shared a little example. I don't do anything. And Jeff, we're okay for another 10 minutes or so, right? Yeah, perfect. So here's a little example, of what I do. And it's pretty simple. My focus with this athlete, for example, was to build squash specific aerobic power and conditioning using drills and condition games. And that's a simple one because that comes down to how I just set the time and the intensity. So I don't have to worry. Conditioning gets taken care of in the drill because it's a 3 minutes on, 30 seconds or so off, not at a super high intensity. So it can be sustainable. I hit the ball a little bit higher. I'm not hitting hard, just trying to get her to move consistently for the conditioning side of it. And then the movement that I'm working on is get her out of the back of the court quicker so that she can take a higher tee position because she has a tendency to hang back in the court a lot. And there are ways you could do that. You could put a pylon kind of on the tee that you have to tap the racket between every shot or whatever it is. There are different ways to do that. And then, I would make a note of some of the drills that we want to do and then have an approximate time frame associated with each of those drills. So here's an example, of just something that I would put together and I just put it in my email drafts because it's on my phone. It's easy for me to access. Actually, before I even go there, the one thing that I wanted to share about this is, and it's impossible to say, you guys can give me your feedback. When you are making your notes and you're setting your plans up, we always want to look at the big picture. So what are the major opportunities for this individual? Because I'm sharing this from my experience. I have a tendency sometimes, your goal is X, you get on court and you see 2-3 other things, and there's a tendency to want to go and address those things. But I would encourage us to stay focused on the initial goal. And I'll give you an example where, let's say, you're working on one aspect of hitting a drive. And all of a sudden maybe the aspect is rotating more before they strike the ball, but then you see them getting too close to the ball, or you see that the target is not accurate enough. Even if the ball goes out, but the rotation is the thing you're focused on, don't worry about the ball going out. Commend and encourage them based on the rotation, because that's the skill that you're trying to ingrain in them. So the targets will come later, and that's kind of our own thing of having to slow ourselves down in that moment. Now, this was interesting. I spoke to Laura Massaro, former women's world #1 world champion, and she told me when it comes to this, I thought this was a great story for awareness and reflection and then deliberate practice. So she told me that there was a time in her career where she was working with a coach, and the coach said, Laura, you need to start hitting straight more. And she's like, but I'm hitting straight a lot. And he said, okay, well, go play a couple of practice matches with this person and record yourself and then watch your video. And she said, I watched the video back and there's just cross courts flying left, right, and center. And I was like, what the heck? Where are these cross courts coming from? Because in her mind, she truly believed that she was hitting straight a lot from the back of the court. But in reality, she was hitting cross a lot. And she said it took her weeks of consistently reminding herself that she needs to hit straight more. So, you would think someone who's that good, who's that aware and all of that will say, okay, I need to hit straight more, and they're going to start hitting straight. But in reality, she kept hitting cross, even though she told herself, I need to hit more straight. So, this is cool, like for folks who are still playing a lot of squash. Sebastian, like I know you're one for sure. If you don't get it right away, don't worry. Laura Massaro didn't get it right away either. And it takes weeks of practice to let something like that sink in. But again, if she wasn't watching the video, she wasn't raising her awareness, and she then had to practice consistently to make it happen. What is deliberate practice? That's the kind of the question. And deliberate practice, based on what Anders Ericsson discussed and put forth, is that you have to create some form of a stretch goal for yourself. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about my own example, where I'm like, oh, I want to earn $1 million. I'm like 21 years old or whatever. That's not realistic. It needs to be a stretch goal. You have to have some form of feedback from a coach or someone who is experienced, because they have to assess and validate and correct your mental representation, which is your internal blueprint about how things operate. So, the squash example is, I want to learn how to hit straight drives like Max Lee. Well, if I'm not getting feedback from someone who can observe me with a really, really detailed eye, I'm not going to know what mistakes I'm making that are preventing me from hitting my length like that. It could be my movement. It could be my spacing. It could be my rotation. It could be my sequencing. Like, who knows what it could be? I have to get that feedback. When I get enough of that feedback, then I have to do a ton of solo correctly, because practice makes permanent. It does not make perfect. I have to do solo correctly to ingrain the new skill. Over time, I develop my own mental representation through the coach's help. And then I raise my awareness, this whole thing we've been talking about today, and then I can self-correct on the fly. So if I don't know what's preventing me from hitting my drives like Max Lee, I can't correct my drives on the fly. I need someone else to tell me. When someone else tells me and I recognize exactly what I need to do, then I can start self-correcting in the moment as well. And then you just keep repeating, and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat with new goals and different goals, and you keep challenging yourself. That is the model for deliberate practice. But then you have to tie that in with that whole SMART piece that we talked about. It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be attainable. It needs to be relevant. And you have to have some sort of timely goal related to your practice. So the example that you see there of my plan, this girl, Salma, that I coach, her conditioning is not the best. So in all of the drills and all of our sessions, I structure everything so it's, no matter what happens, without even saying conditioning, we're doing conditioning, right? Like the drills are timed in such a way and all of that kind of stuff that we're just doing conditioning. It's continuous, slightly lower intensity, build the aerobic base. Now, on top of that, with her technique's generally pretty sound. At least her conditioning is the major loophole, and then, or the major gap. And then in addition to that, it's tactical awareness and shot selection. So everything is designed around that. I'm not so worried in those sessions about technique. Now, That might change when it comes to the off season, for example, because then I might want to reinforce or refine certain technical things related to her movement and things like that, which would then help her enhance the rest of the game, as an example. So just as a reminder for anyone who's practicing, deliberate practice is challenging. It is hard. It is uncomfortable. It's not always fun. The key is you have to do it in practice. So you're not going to go engaging with this deliberate practice rubric in a tournament, because in a tournament, you need to have awareness of what's going on, but you're not trying to dissect your technique and do things like that in a tournament, because that's just going to slow you down. And that applies to cricket, Phil, or squash, or, whatever it is. There's a time and a place for all of that. So one little homework piece that I have for you folks is, it sounds like you're already setting up your sessions in quite a well-structured way. If you are not currently looking at that really high level first, what is this athlete's major deficit? And am I strategically prioritizing their opportunities? I would encourage you to step back maybe for a minute and ensure that you are strategically prioritizing the opportunities. And then the majority of your sessions are maybe focused on that. You obviously need some variety, because otherwise it becomes stale and boring, but you want to prioritize accordingly, and then be very specific with your training.
Questions?
So folks, yes, questions for you. Questions for me, rather.
That was a lot you said. Amazing stuff. I like it.
Thank you.
Question. Is it stress goal or stretch goal?
Stretch goal.
Stretch goal.
Yes.
And the camera as a tool for awareness.
Yes.
How much is that a player here?
I truly believe that video review is huge. So and this is the thing here, I'll stop the screen share so we can see each other a little bit better. Video helps us recognize all of the things that we can't see. So when I'm on court, I think I'm doing things a certain way, but in reality, I'm not, until I see the video. As I become more and more aware, my blueprint improves, my self-awareness improves. Then as soon as I do something that I know is incorrect, it immediately registers. But the thing is, I only know so much. I only know what I know. I don't know what's kind of out of my blueprint and my internal set of understanding of things, which is why I would need a coach who has more experience than me, or who knows more than me, for example, to point out subtleties that are currently not in my realm of possibility. So video is huge. Like, that's one thing that I do. Like, I do a ton of this with different people. Is I spend like 2 hours sometimes analyzing their matches in detail, slowly. And then when they see themselves, I take still images of some of their stuff. When they see themselves, I'm like, whoa, I had no idea I was doing that. There's one kid I coach who, on his forehand, he has a tendency to just smash the ball into the tin. And we talk about this. And I'm like, well, the reason you're doing this is because of this. But he doesn't recognize it. He has a tendency when he hits his forehand, his follow through, he goes like this with his racket. It kind of loops over, but he doesn't recognize it. The first time I showed him the images of himself doing that, he was like, whoa, I didn't know I did that. I can tell him, I can show him what he's doing, but until he sees himself doing it, he doesn't recognize it. So I think video is huge. The challenge for most is that they don't have the time to do it, or they don't understand the value in doing it. So I would highly encourage you to leverage video.
Thanks. Yeah.
Any other questions, folks? Yeah, Nick, you're right. The video is the objective observer. Exactly. The video doesn't lie. We see everything that's happening. And if you have someone who has enough knowledge, or like I said, the blueprint, using that terminology, then you can break down a ton of stuff with the video.
Yeah. Actually, my piano teacher is remote. We do it on Skype. And I'm allowed to record her playing and me playing.
Yes.
I play back, and it's amazing. I see all my mistakes and the corrections, and it's a constant tutor. It's not just half an hour, 1 hour of teaching. I have all my lessons throughout. So it's powerful. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you have customized lesson recordings, which will help you in the future. You can review them anytime you want. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you can track progress, which adds to confidence and shows
Yes.
how much you've improved as well.
True. Yeah.
All right. Any final questions? I think, was that helpful, folks? Did it provide some clarity?
Fantastic. Fabulous.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Jeff, I'll let you take it away, sir.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ahad, for another valuable, informative presentation as part of our Coach PD webinar series. It was very, very informative, and even I took away a few things that I can use in my own coaching, but in a different sport for curling. And even just what you just were talking about with respect to video. I mean, we use it all the time in curling and recording stuff. I mean, even as simple as, we often will stream games on Facebook.
Yes.
So parents can watch, and afterwards, boom, you've got a valuable resource to sit down. In my case, it's not one athlete, but with a team of athletes and watch. And what I really like is you can do it in person, you can come back to it on Zoom, whatever. And it really creates a conversation piece with your athletes about what you can or cannot do and what you can change, what you should do differently. And I think anything that's, with respect to video, or I've even got a virtual strategy board with a curling sheet where I can move rocks around, and it creates a conversation about how they can get better with whatever that might be. And you can apply that to any sport or anything you're really doing. And so I think it dovetailed really nicely as to how you finished this presentation, Ahad, on, optimizing mindset, outlook, and performance. And, on behalf of myself and our participants on the call today, we thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for attending. I hope you apply everything, and send me a message at some point. Let me know how you're progressing.
Will do.
Thanks, Ahad.
Thank you.
Okay.
So for
Have
those
a great
still
day.
those still on the call, just an FYI that the information will be in the locker today or tomorrow, and you will get a copy of the video and slides. I'll get that from Ahad later today, and you'll get that in the next 24 to 48 hours. But otherwise, stay tuned. I hope to have a couple more webinars between now and the end of June. We're trying to set some up. If we don't, then we'll be back in the fall with a new lineup of new presenters and topics, but stay tuned for more information on that in the coming days.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Have a good afternoon, folks.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. You too. Bye for now.